Hey everyone, Matt here, Grass Stains, coming to you today with a little information about lawns, lawn care, and some lawn alternatives. So I mentioned in the live video earlier this week about a crane fly infestation, so we're going to talk a little bit about that, but just wanted to start with some typical thoughts and steps for properly installing a sod lawn. So you can see behind me here, this is a brand new installation of perennial ryegrass. Here in Portland, Oregon, a lot of lawns are perennial ryegrass. It's a good, versatile lawn. A lot of people use it. Stays nice and green and lush here year round, and it's pretty durable. Not the most durable, but very durable indeed. So when you're starting to think about a project like installing a new sod lawn, the first thing you always want to do is, obviously get a design together, get a layout together. And there's some critical things to think about when you're doing that. One thing I would always encourage people to do, especially here in the Pacific Northwest, is think about drainage. We get a tremendous amount of water in our environment, so you want to slope your lawn off. Anytime you're going to install a new lawn, you want to make sure that you have at least a minimum of 1% slope. So you can see that there's a little bit of topography to it, just enough to kind of drain off. And so what that's going to help you with is anytime you're, worried about common pest, we get a lot of, or can commonly get rust in this area, mold and fungus growing, and then crane fly is a big issue. Having a lawn properly drained is going to help you with all of those issues. The other thing to think about is just when you're doing your layout, is what's the environment. All lawns, our company name is Grass Stains. It's kind of a play on words because I personally think lawns are really intensive, and while they definitely have their place and they're awesome for having a big open play area like this is, they're intensive when it comes to maintenance. So you've got to get on a regular mowing campaign in the summer. You are going to be reseeding and fertilizing regularly, and then you're going to be amending your soil. So for example, here in the Pacific Northwest, we have a lot of clay soils. Soil types different every site we go to, but we see a tremendous amount of black clay. And you combine that black clay with the acidic rain we get in an urban environment, and it's really tough on a lawn. So right off the bat, you're looking at amendments with compost or three-way soil, or you're also looking at applying, dolomitic lime to bring some of the minerals out that might be deficient because of some of those factors in the soil and the acidic rain. And then the other thing that you are typically doing is you're adding some level of fertilizer, either a conventional fertilizer, from a local supplier. You might start with a fast release to give you a nice green look, something that's got a high nitrogen content, and then you might introduce in a couple weeks, 2 to 3 weeks after that, depending on the brand you choose and the schedule recommended, but you would probably want to introduce a slow release. Fast released conventional fertilizers are something to really play with carefully, because they do a lot of different things that kind of can kill and prevent natural organic soil life. So when possible, you might want to look at alternatives. Look at something called OMRI approved labels. So that's going to be a more natural solution to kind of amending pH and soil type. One that we use routinely, it has some drawbacks, but nature's best is it's kind of like a chicken manure type mixture. So it's got kind of a foul smell and big particulates, but it is an organic approach to fertilizing lawns and giving them a little boost. So anyway, just again, thinking about the fact that anywhere you place a lawn, you're going to need to immediately start a maintenance schedule with it, including fertilization, reseed in the spring and the fall, and then you're going to have to keep an eye out for any pest or disease that come in. I mentioned crane fly. Crane fly is a pest, a European pest that came here, and it really affects us in the Pacific Northwest. What it looks like in the summer, it hatches in August, and it looks like a massive mosquito, actually. The wings, can be this big, and you see all these bugs flying around, and the unfortunate thing is when you see that, when they actually hatch in August, it's too late. They've already decimated your lawn, as you can see on the images, and it's too late to prevent them at that point. They fly around for about a month, and then they lay their eggs, and they go dormant. Their larvae actually hatch in the late fall in about October, and then they start start eating the crowns and the root structure of your lawn. So when they're actually doing all the damage, you don't even really, you might not see them unless you're really looking for them. You can dig up a square foot of lawn with a shovel, flip it over and look at the root structure, and you'll be able to actually see the larva in October and November if you've got an infestation or think you might. And that's the time you want to treat for them. So there's both some organic treatment spray programs you can do. There's also some traditional, conventional sprays you can use and slow emergence and things like that. You don't need to apply it unless you see signs of it, but definitely if your lawn is wet, if you have flat spots or puddling spots in your lawn, something to pay attention to in the fall, because we see a lot of it, and it can take a perfectly good, amazing looking lawn like this and decimate it in a matter of a couple months, and you're back to square zero. So again, that's just, when you think about lawn, be intentional about where you design and place it, because it does take so much effort to maintain it and make it really look good. Not to mention, dealing with broadleaf, so weed seeds that are blowing in or being brought in by birds. So you gotta if you want to keep that monoculture look, that really fresh, fine lawn look, you're gonna have to be out there every couple of weeks in the spring and kind of maintaining that. Some kind of final thoughts here, also on layout and design of lawn spaces, is thinking about flow. So what do you want to do with the lawn? Is it to play, making sure it's big enough that that's useful, or is it just to throw a towel out in the summer and hang out and kind of lounge? That could be a smaller lawn space. And then think about your exposure. So all lawns are going to want half a day to almost a 3/4 of a day of full sunlight if you can give it to them. And in environments like this, which is a little bit shady, over here on the north side of a house, it's going to be a tough life for this lawn. And so we talked about that with the customer and talked about what are going to be some of the needs that this will have versus other lawns. So it's just going to require more fertilization, more seeding, and just more maintenance and input to keep it looking like this. And then again, thinking about drainage. So in certain instances where we have a real high clay soil, maybe the site's not perking at all, we sometimes will look into sand setting lawns. So we'll actually just lay it on a fine sand, a well-drained and filtered sand. And it's a good solution for drainage, but really poor for organic matter. So now that lawn's going to constantly need that input of fertilization. So just all these are factors to consider, and I want to show you guys real quickly an alternative that's out there. If maybe you decide you still want lawn, you still want the open space, but you don't want to take care of all that maintenance. So let's take a look. So I talked a little bit to you that we'd mentioned some lawn alternatives. So what I'm standing on here now is a synthetic lawn product. Synthetic lawns come a long way since the days of AstroTurf. And it's a really good solution in certain instances. I was pretty hesitant to recommend a synthetic lawn, but then after seeing its application, it can just make a lot of sense for certain situations. In this instance, we had the request that we wanted a clean, dry play area. And where we wanted to position it, due to the fact there was just limited space in this site, was in a pretty shady environment. And so knew it was going to be really tough to get it to, number one, get a lawn that drained well there, and the number two, one that would thrive. So in this instance, it made a lot of sense. So some of the benefits to synthetic lawn are definitely the fact that you don't deal with mud, you don't deal with the muck or the squishiness. It's extremely durable, so it's going to last you, depending on the particular product you choose, 15 to 25 years. And the other thing to think about is the fact that it just has a lot less maintenance. So there is some maintenance to it. You do have to add some infill over time, some sand. We use a fungicide sand when we install this. But there's a lot less. So every couple years you're updating that. If you're using it for a dog run or something like that, maybe you're having to put some charcoal treatment or approved products on it more regularly. But by and large, the maintenance is night and day compared to a natural lawn. Some of the cons, the price of synthetic lawn is not even close to a natural turf installation. It's going to be far more expensive, be closer to the cost of like a paver installation or hardscaping. So definitely that can be a downside. But again, over the long haul, the cost input probably balances out when you think about all the inputs and the maintenance and the time you would spend on a natural lawn. So here's one alternative. The other alternatives that are out there, there's a lot of seed alternative lawns that have a mixture of different types of seeds, so that you're not trying to grow a monoculture. And they might have things like micro clover or yarrow mixed in, so that they're kind of self-fertilizing, just a lot lower maintenance, but it's going to be a totally different look too. It's not going to look like a golf course lawn. And then there's, of course, like for example, if you're getting up on steep slopes in Seattle or other places with steep slopes around the valley and Pacific Northwest, you can think about maybe using a ground cover or steppable to replace a lawn. Anytime you have a severely steep slope, maintaining a lawn can be really tough. Your mower's going to start to track it. You're going to start to get issues with drainage and just all sorts of challenges. So maybe thinking about some sort of alternative that looks, kind of appears like a low green growing a ground cover that has that lawn appearance but isn't lawn. So just some quick thoughts. There's a little bit of information on lawns and lawn alternatives, and hope that's helpful. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to throw them down the feed below, and I'll answer them when I can.